to the historic Ocean House, a luxurious hotel that pays homage to New England's golden age of hospitality, with timeless elegance and renewed civility. This treasured resort is the setting of our special broadcast of the Ocean House Author Series, each program featuring nationally best-selling and award-winning authors in a salon-style conversation, hosted by Ocean House owner, actress, and best-selling author Deborah Goodrich Royce. WCRI is pleased to partner with the Ocean House to present this ongoing series, which brings you the best and the brightest of the literary world. Now, let's take you to the Ocean House.
Belle Burden is an attorney specializing in juvenile immigration cases. Her writing has been in the New York Times. Belle attended Phillips, Exeter Academy, and Harvard College and received her JD from New York University School of Law. She lives in New York City with her 3 children. Welcome, Belle. Belle will be in conversation this evening with Deborah Goodrich Royce. Deborah's latest book, Best Boy, was an instant indie press bestseller, and Reef Road, a national bestseller, was named one of the best books of 2023 by Kirkus Reviews. She began as an actress on All My Children and in multiple films before transitioning to the role of story editor at Miramax Films. With her husband Chuck, Deborah restored the Avon Theater, Ocean House Hotel, Deer Mountain Inn, United Theater, and Martin House Books. Belle and Deborah will now discuss Belle's memoir, Strangers, and after the discussion, we will open it up to questions from the audience. So please raise your hand. We'll have 2 mics. We'll run a mic over to you so we can capture your question for folks listening in the future. And without any further ado, please join me in welcoming #1 New York Times bestselling author Belle Burden and Deborah Goodrich Royce.
So thank you, Belle, for coming, and thank you all for coming back. I personally want to say how excited I am to be speaking with you tonight, but I would like a show of hands before we begin. Has anybody else ever gone through something like this? I have. So, mixed. So you all know what the book is about, right? Great. So we're going to skip over that. But I want to ask you, why did you write this book? I know what happened, but why did you write it?
First, I want to say thank you so much for having me here, Deborah. It's a thrill to do this with you. This hotel is so beautiful. Thank you all for coming out tonight. It's really amazing to see you all here to listen to us and to hear about my book. I think a few things led me to write it. From the beginning, I'm a shy and reserved person, so you would never expect that I would do this. But from the beginning, from the first week after my husband left, and you'll find that I say husband when I'm talking about that period, and then later I'll say ex-husband. He said that we should say that the separation was amicable. And I had this full-bodied knowing that I could not lie about what was happening to me, even if it was a more flattering story for me. I knew that the only way I would get through it was to be honest about it. And then I became so honest that when I would run into people, they would say, "How are you doing?" And because it was COVID and people were coming back to Martha's Vineyard, and I would say, "I'm not well. He left me and I'm in agony." And that continued, that sort of inability to not tell this story. And then part of my kind of coming back to life was writing. And that happened in different stages, working on my legal cases and then eventually writing a column for Modern Love. I was a writer when I was young, and that got reawakened, and that was part of my recovery. But I would say the biggest reason why I wrote this book is that I have a generational legacy in my family of male infidelity, and no one ever talked about it. I was taught by example that to be a good woman, to be a graceful woman, that you don't talk about these things, that you clean them up, that you protect the man, that you protect the man's reputation. And I thought I had changed that legacy by marrying someone who's not a public figure, who was very mild-mannered, seemed very calm and kind. But I had repeated it, and I really wrestled with why. Why do the women in my family attract this? And how do I change that? And I landed on, at the same time that I'm sort of being open and honest, that the only way to change that for my children is to actually tell the story. Mm-hmm. And that it's possible to tell your story without being mean and vindictive and vengeful, which is how we're characterized. And I wanted to write something that was true and honest and explored a lot of these themes that come up around a divorce like this, without sort of building a case against my ex.
So I want to talk a little bit about repeating patterns unwittingly, because I do believe that there are a number of people who would say, how didn't you know, and how could you not see this, or how could you not see that? My father was 36 years older than my mother. Big age difference. When I was 12, my father essentially got old, lost his businesses, fell into a depression, and went to bed, and the whole family fell apart. I married a younger man, my first husband, 4 years younger. I did everything differently.
Right, fixed it all. Yeah.
I had that down. When my eldest daughter was 12, to the button, he had his crisis and left. And I thought, are we just, one of the things I wondered, sort of, like we approach the oracle at Delphi and we're told, you're going to kill your father and marry your mother, and off we go, thinking we're not going to do anything like that, and then we do that.
Yes, it
Please
happens.
talk to me about how the heck we do that when we think we're doing everything differently.
It really came as such a shock to me. It really did. I thought I had married absolutely the opposite. My husband would go to bed at 9 p.m. He worked all the time. He was not a flirtatious person. He did not read like this. And then it happened. And it was I don't know, he had sides to him from teenage years that were a little more rebellious. You could make the point, and people tried to find the signs. I tried to find the signs, that it would lead to this as I looked back on it. But I really struggled with it, and I think hindsight is 20/20, right? You can, if I was celebrating my 50th wedding anniversary, we'd be saying, there are no bad signs in this marriage. It all turned out so well. But if it ends like ours did, it's easy to go back and say, oh, there's this. I think anyone could find that in their own marriage if it ended.
I want to talk about something. When a marriage ends in divorce versus death of one or the other party, there was something that happened in my case that was extremely unsettling to me. Other people tend to assume it was a horrible marriage, you must have been unhappy, and you're better off without him.
Yes.
So the entirety of a marriage is recharacterized when it ends in divorce. And there were times I thought, and I don't mean this, if only he had died, I would feel better about all this. Not just the rejection, but also other people's assumptions. Will you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was really, really hard for me. And that was really hard for my kids. Our story became, after 20 years of marriage, 3 children, it became only about the ending, only about this horrible ending. And that's another reason why I wrote the book, is that I wanted to recreate our love story, our happy years as a family. I believe to this day that we were very happy for a long period of time. And I didn't want that to be gone for my kids. I want that to be true. I believe that can be true, and it ended badly. And I think the other thing that was hard in that reaction is that it assumes that the day he left, that I stopped loving him. Like that I was like, oh, what a jerk. But I was still in love with him. And it took me a very long time, even though he was not treating me well, it took me a very long time to fall out of love with him. And that was really painful. Also, when I would try to explain, we didn't have a marriage with a lot of conflict. People didn't really buy that, and that was hard for me because I just wanted to say, no, you don't understand. I did not see this coming. He gave me no warning.
Yeah, it was very similar with me. My first husband and I, we had celebrated our anniversary. He had given me this ring in a Tiffany box, and this note. This was December.
Yep.
Of you've made me happy all these years. I only hope I've given you reason to stay with me the rest of your life. 1 month later, let's talk about tipping points. It was cold. I lived in Mamaroneck. I was driving into the city with my kids. We had a cat my ex-husband was about to let the cat outside in the freezing cold. I said, no, we're going to the city, don't let the cat out. He slammed the door and he said, this cat has no freedom.
Oh,
and it was like, no. And I told my closest friend, she said, oh, that's ridiculous, you're exaggerating.
Yep.
You know. So please tell your story, because it is the tipping point when it happened. You're in Martha's Vineyard.
Phone call. I'll just say on the point with the ring, my ex bought a very, very expensive mattress in January. Like very expensive Sleep Number mattress where you can adjust it for each of you. One has a harder side. I like it very hard. He likes it very soft. And it was such, like, we had to get like all these, our doormen to put it in. It was such an investment in time, and that was January, and he left in March.
Right.
And I couldn't make sense of it.
You're preaching to the choir here.
Yes.
So we should be wearing gifts. They're like Trojan horses. Yes. Watch out, ladies.
So yes, it was the second week of COVID lockdown. I think we all remember that week in March. It was very scary. We didn't know how long it would last. We didn't know when we would get a vaccine. We moved to our house in Martha's Vineyard, which was isolated. It was our favorite place. It was actually, we had a very cozy week. Even though it was such a strange time. My husband was chopping wood and building fires. I was cooking, he was cooking. And one night after dinner, I was mopping the floor and I got a call on my cell phone. It went to voicemail because I didn't recognize the number. And then I played it, and it was a man saying, I'm trying to reach Belle. I'm sorry to tell you this, but your husband is having an affair with my wife. And at first I thought this has to be a mistake, and then I thought, no, he said my name. And that night, my husband was very apologetic. He said it only lasted a couple of weeks. It's a mistake. I love you and only you. And then by the morning, he came into our bedroom fully dressed with a bag packed and said, I thought I wanted this life, but I don't. I thought I was happy, but I'm not. And I want a divorce, and I'm leaving right now. And he walked out the door, didn't even wait for my response, got in his Jeep and got on a ferry and left the island. And from that moment, and actually the moment he walked into our bedroom, his whole affect had changed. It had gone icy. The eyes were different. It was like this was a totally different person. And it was so cold, and the coldness continued in the form of just such a lack of empathy. And I think one thing I tried to show in the book is that almost overnight, I became, because I was so shocked and so heartbroken and so upset, and he was so calm and so kept saying, you're just so upset, I can't talk to you, that you become sort of the unhinged person, even though they've done something kind of crazy. And I think that's used against women, that we're all of a sudden like a hysteric.
I'll tell you a story about that. And then I want to go back to my question. July.
Yes.
So we started in January. In July, I was leaving town, house in Mamaroneck, had 2 cats, out of kitty litter. My husband, who had left in June, it took him till June to go. He's back at the house. Mamaroneck, this is Westchester, this is north of New York City. I just want to give you some geography. I'd said he could stay there for the weekend, and I said, I have to get kitty litter before I go away. He said, I'll do it, Deborah. I said, well, I mean, the cats don't have any kitty litter. I can't leave. I told you I'd do it. I'm just going to play tennis. So I'm about to go out the door, and I turn around. I said, wait a second, where are you playing tennis? He said, Southampton. So you have the geography. I storm out the door. A few nights later, I call. I hear him at a dinner. All these people. And I lost it on the phone. We are on radio. I cannot say the things I said. Screaming like a banshee over the phone. And I'm sure he held it out, saying, you see what I am dealing with here?
But those were very natural emotions, that very normal way to act.
I want to ask you, did you ever see the movie Sliding Doors?
Yes.
You know the concept. Do you think, had you not gotten the call, had you not confronted this at that moment, that everything could have been different, not that you would want it to now all these years later, but that it was just by forcing it at the moment that things went the way they went, that there's a variability in how it could have gone.
I think that's absolutely true, and I think COVID was a part of that too, because he was looking at the situation where he was going to be stuck in a house with me, where he was going to have to do therapy on Zoom, and I think that was an intensifier and probably an accelerator. But I do think we were probably, if he was willing to do all that, I think that probably something had shifted. The only explanation he's given me is that a switch went off, and the question is, would that switch have gone off if we were not in that particular situation? How long would he have continued in an affair if the husband had not called me, if the husband had not figured it out? I really don't know.
No,
I really don't.
It's unanswerable. But I too, my former husband said at the time, because we did therapy, he said, and he has no memory now, because we are very cordial, no memory of ever having said this. He said, I feel like I am in a room filled with bees, and I will do anything, including jumping through the glass to get out of it. I'm like, well, that's a compliment.
Right, exactly.
We'll take a short break and be back with the Ocean House Author Series here on WCRI.
Ocean House, located on the scenic Atlantic Ocean in historic Watch Hill, is one of only 14 triple five-star resorts in the world, with superb guest accommodations, a world-class spa, dining, and events. This year, Ocean House is once again hosting one of their most popular events, the Ocean House Author Series with Deborah Goodrich Royce. Enjoy her discussion with Book of the Month Club and New York Times bestselling author Catherine Center on Wednesday, May 27th at 6 p.m. They will be discussing her latest rom-com novel, The Shippers. Attendance includes a signed copy of the featured book, insightful conversation, as well as complimentary wine and delicious light bites. Held at the breathtaking Ocean House, this exciting event begins at 6 p.m. Wednesday, May 27th. For information and tickets, go to oceanhouseevents.com. That's oceanhouseevents.com.
And we're back with the Ocean House Author Series on WCRI.
I think the midlife crisis, from having seen my own husbands and other friends' husbands, or wives have them too, it is not much different from an adolescent experience. The person changes on a dime, becomes completely unreasonable, and you in many ways are the mom, the person who's confining them, curtailing them.
Right.
And do you think, given your grandmother's life, your mother's life, they withstood the episode and went to something better, or was it chronic and ongoing?
I think it was chronic and ongoing, and but I think the men were a bit different because they kept wanting to come back, right? They wanted the lifestyle and to be forgiven and to stay in the relationship, and mine was not like that. He wanted absolutely to bust out. I think that my grandmother, when she died, I think her heart was broken over it. I think it really was. And I think for her generation, it would have been absolutely impossible to imagine a different life. She was married to a very powerful, dynamic, wealthy man, and it would have been very hard to get out. My mother did end the relationship after a very long time. And that was really hard for her, but I think I noticed a difference immediately when the relationship ended, that she was much stronger and much happier. And I never would have left my marriage. I don't know if I'd known about the affair, if I would have eventually left. But I am much happier now, which still surprises me, even though an intact family, I love my husband, it was so important to me. But I don't think I ever could have gotten to this place if my marriage hadn't ended.
I feel the same way, but when a person leaves a marriage, when one person makes a choice, I likened it to, I mean, creating a marriage is like writing a book. It's like making a movie. It's like creating a work of art, a painting, and it's a collaborative work. You and the other person and the children, you are all part of writing this story.
Yes.
And when one person opts out, I think it's very hard to grasp on to what's even happening. I was in the movie business when it happened to me, and I felt like someone had changed the script. I kept saying, this is not my life.
Yes, and it's very, it's terrifying to have the life that you thought you were going to have just suddenly disappear. Yeah. It's really, people ask, like, were you just so angry? And I never really anger was never the dominant emotion. It was sadness, it was heartbreak, and it was so much fear. Because I just couldn't imagine my life going forward, and then I had financial fears as well. And then I think you're treated differently in your social groups. Like, all those different pillars come down, and it's very hard to imagine what's going to come next.
Yeah, I was consumed with fear too. I think I got these large muscle shakes. I just felt vibrating. But I want to talk about money and women and the decisions we make, and I think some of these decisions have to do with this idea of two becoming one, and we're going to delegate and share, and I'll stay home on the farm, and you go out to the field, and it's in our DNA.
It is in our DNA. I think it really is.
I'd like you to talk a little bit about some of the choices you made or didn't make in entering into your marriage.
I think when we were talking about red flags and things you look back at, if I look back at our financial story, I think there are a lot of decision points and signs that he was always going to be financially protective because of his own childhood history.
Of himself. Yeah.
So for me, there were decision points. There was a decision point around the prenup where I agreed to a change that he wanted, which came back to haunt me. I made the decision to move my assets out of trust and to buy our homes and to put them in joint name because I believed that's what you do in a marriage, that you share equally. And then another thing that happened was that he was in finance. We met as lawyers, but he moved into finance. And he really took charge of our financial life. And I really liked that. It felt like his form of caretaking. He was going out into the world and supporting us. But I also think it was important to his self-esteem that he was in charge of that. And over the years, I paid our bills online, but I lost touch with where our assets sat, whose names were on what. I signed our tax returns. I didn't read our tax returns. And slowly you start to convince yourself, and I'm not alone in this, I have peers, well-educated peers who are in the same boat. You start to convince yourself you can't understand it, and they're better able to understand it. I'm a former corporate lawyer. I was fully capable of understanding it. Anyone is. But you get very comfortable in the not knowing. Like, it's a very luxurious place to be. And all of that came back to haunt me in my divorce. And with this book, I'm very happy to talk about this theme, and I'm actually okay being a cautionary tale, because what I'm hearing is that it's really pushing people to talk to their partners about where their assets are, whose name is on what, and even if you're the most happily married person on earth, to talk about and to know what will happen to you if the marriage ends. And having those conversations, if you have a financial advisor, make sure that financial advisor actually speaks to you and not just your husband. And I'm seeing this shift, and I'm really happy about that, that's happening. And I think the last thing that happened that you're touching on is that we really had a very traditional division of responsibility. I really wanted to be home with kids. I wanted to be at school pickup. I kept my law license and did pro bono work, and he worked all the time. And in our marriage, everything became about his work and his dream and the final goal, and it all moved towards that. And I think when that happens in a marriage, it's easy to lose sight of your own passions and talents and what you always wanted to be in life. And I think some people take this as a message against staying at home and taking care of kids, which I don't mean at all. I would not change that. But I think you can have balance in making sure that things shift back to you and to what you want to do with your life.
Right. Speaking of your children, I want to first talk about your husband's post-marriage behavior vis-a-vis the children and the effect it's had on them, because he really distanced.
He really did. He really felt that they were at the time 12, 15, and 17. And that first day when he left, he said, you can have custody. I don't want any custody. And he stuck to that. He does not and does not have a bedroom for them. He does not take them on vacations. He has not spent a night with them since he left. It is not the case of someone moving, around the globe and starting another family and never hearing from again. He lives near us. He's in touch with them. He's very kind and sweet with them, but he does not do the daily parenting of waiting up for curfew or applying to college or heartbreaks or any of those things. He just really signed off on that. He said they're fully formed human beings. And that has been the hardest part of this. This is a finite period for me. This is their dad for life. It has been painful for them. But the way I tried to talk to them about it is, for some reason that I don't understand it, your dad cannot make a home for you right now. He doesn't have pots and pans. He's just not able to do it. And that is about him. That's not about you. And that to them was, I think, better for me to acknowledge their reality rather than saying, this is normal, this is fine. And they're amazing now. They're 18, 21, and 23. And they're very sweet and supportive of their dad. They understand his limitations, I think, and they try to see him in ways that make him comfortable, like going to a hockey game or his favorite restaurant, but it's limited.
Oddly, my ex-husband disengaged as well, and the way I would describe him, I came to realize he's abstract. For him, love is a feeling, and if he feels the feeling of love, it's done. He's loved you, whereas for me, love is an action verb. Yes. It requires making dinner and driving to school and doing this and doing that, and it's the way I've made sense of him, that when he left that marriage, there was something about the marriage that tethered him. He has been like a butterfly floating around the planet since then, and it's true. He was at my house New Year's Eve. Well, that's another story. But it was very hard. It's been the hardest thing.
Yes.
My children are more than a decade beyond yours. And one has coped better than the other. One is closer with him, one is not. There are effects from that. There are. I think they become very resilient. I think I'm sure your kids are very strong. Yep. My kids are very strong. But it's so interesting the way you said that. I think my husband would say the same thing, that love is a feeling and that's enough.
I think I hadn't heard that before. That's really interesting. Yeah, thank you.
And then I want to ask you, because we need to go to questions from the audience, what do you think the effect of your writing the book and speaking so candidly about all of this has had on your children?
Time will tell, but I think they're really proud of me. Nothing in the book is a surprise to them. They lived through this. And my hope is that what's amazing to me is I hear from so many people around the world right now, particularly women, and I also hear it from children adults now who were children, sometimes teenagers, writing to me actually, who've read the book, and they reassure me that this is the right thing to do, to be so honest about it, and that often parents just try and act like nothing happened, and there's this mystery, dad left, but I don't know why, and was mom okay, and my hope is that by having this text that it will serve them well. But I don't know, it's the hardest part of this, because I'm conscious every day of how complicated this is for them to have this book out in the world.
Well, I would like to say, and I know there are a lot of questions in the room, I think you've written a very worthy book, and that is the word I want to use. I think there is profound worth in what you've done, because you have put voice to something that many people go through, and it is deeply mystifying and disturbing and painful, and we all patch together, and the ways we patch it together and go on. So I think, as you can tell by the success of the book, you've struck a deep chord of something that people needed to hear.
And when it happened to me, I really felt like I was the only person that it had happened to. And it's just astonishing to me that this happened to you and that it happened to other people in the audience. And I think we'd all be better off if we shared these stories and made these connections with each other and made each other feel less alone. I think we're taught in our culture to really stay quiet about this stuff.
I think
it doesn't serve us.
My friend who introduced me to my wonderful husband, who built the Ocean House Hotel, in this period, and we'll go to your questions, she would call me daily, and I can't swear on the radio. She would say, "What did that a-hole do today?" So every day she called, and we actually had a domain name, thatahole.com, which we were going to create, how to survive guides and where to go and what to do with your life guides. We never did. Life took a different direction.
We'll take a short break and be back with the Ocean House Author Series here on WCRI.
You have the perfect family, a beautiful home, and a secret that should have stayed buried. But the past doesn't care about your new life. Discover the latest work from hotelier and nationally best-selling author Deborah Goodrich Royce. Her newest psychological thriller, Best Boy, is a taut, gripping exploration of identity, memory, and the dangerous power of forgetting. Unlock the mystery today, whether for yourself or the reader in your life. Pick up Best Boy by Deborah Goodrich Royce, available wherever books are sold. Visit DeborahGoodrichRoyce.com for more information on Best Boy, Deborah Goodrich Royce, and the Ocean House Author Series. Best Boy. Some stories were never meant to stay hidden.
And we're back with the Ocean House Author Series on WCRI.
But how about some questions from the audience on that note? We have one, and then we have one right here in the black and white check
dress.
Hi, Belle. I think you're
Hi.
amazing.
Thank
you for
you.
being here. So can you talk a little bit about how you had to get your husband's permission for the original article?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then I'm dying to know what he thinks of now with the movie, and I saw on Instagram something about Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yes. I was so surprised when that happened with the Times because I knew he would get a fact check call, which I was prepared for. It's the New York Times. But then, for those who haven't read it, they said we got through the editing process, which was grueling. And then they said the standards desk says that you have to give it to your ex and get his reaction. I said, that sounds like you're asking for his approval. And they said, no, we just want to hear his reaction and then we'll decide what to do. And I was like, well, his reaction's not going to be good. So
I can tell you that.
Why would I show it to him and risk him getting mad if he's just going to say no and then you're not going to run it? And I was really upset. And I was pretty feisty with them, which actually surprised me. And then I said, this is the end of the road. I was like, I just have to let this go. And I could not let it go. I wanted to see this piece in the paper. I wanted to see my byline so badly. I wanted to get this out in the world, which still surprises me. And so I sent it to him, and he didn't answer for a while. And then he said, he typed it in a text. He said, hard to read, it's good, I support. And I like to think about that as the man I was married to, like that other person, who I still think of as a different person, who actually wanted to support me, and I told him how meaningful it was to me to write again and to write this story. So I like to think of it that way. There is a piece of it where I think he still didn't see anything wrong with that narrative, right? I think he thinks men are allowed to leave like that, right? So I think he's in an environment in finance where people do this. Like, this is an accepted, you are not censored for this. I never wanted him to lose his job, but it was remarkable how accepted it is there. So yes, that really surprised me. With the book, I did not have to do that, but I went through 4 very rigorous legal reviews. One on my own, one with Random House in the US, one with Random House in the UK, and then I did another one at the very end. This is a very buttoned up book. I made sure I had backup for everything. I ended up having to take out some of the financial story, which was very hard for me because it was true, but it made me a little bit more at risk. He has never talked to me about what he thinks of the book. He wrote to Random House last summer. Someone gave him a galley. I did not, and he had 2 objections, one of which I agreed to change, and the other I refused to change, and Random House backed me up.
He wanted to be more handsome or something?
It won't surprise you, it was about the financial story.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know what he thinks of the movie either. Yeah. Not sure. Yeah. It's a lot for one person. I have sympathy. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
I really love how articulate of a writer you are. Like, all the words feel so polished and fresh. And for me, like, I'm a very messy writer, and I don't think my thoughts are super cohesive. Like, in your process, how did you get to that point?
This just occurred to me recently, which is amazing to me. I've always felt like this sadness that I wanted to write and got to college, and an older student told me I couldn't write, and I stopped writing, which is insane that I listened to him, but I did. And then I, for 30 years, was a lawyer and learned to write legal briefs that need to be crisp and clear and persuasive. And it just occurred to me recently that actually helped my writing rather than being a 30-year diversion. But I wouldn't worry at all about it being messy. Mine starts very messy. You should start messy. You should just get it all out there, and then just with edits and time. Wouldn't you agree with this? Like, start messy and then revision. Yes,
absolutely.
So much. I write messy in the morning, and then I edit in the afternoon when I was writing the book, and I edit with pen. I write on the computer and then edit with pen, and you can just think of those as 2 different complementary tasks.
I do that too, and another thing I do, eventually, I read my book aloud.
Yes.
It is a really interesting synthesizing exercise to hear your words back, to hear things you repeat, to hear clunky rhythms. It really helps.
I agree with that too. I did that once, and it was shocking, like what you learn from that. It's amazing.
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you for your raw honesty in this book, and for creating a blueprint for women of all generations and ages about if something goes wrong, they're not crazy, and to know your worth. And I mean, I can't wait for my daughter to read this, to know that you can do everything right and still have the rug pulled out from under you and something can go wrong.
Yeah.
And just thank you for putting that story out there and getting women to talk about this, which is, I think it's, it's almost a taboo subject in some ways, about finances and what you put out there in a relationship. So I just wanted to say thank you for sharing that story.
Thank you. Thank you. I love hearing that younger generation is reading it, and that it will, they'll learn a lot from it, but also know that if it does all fall apart, that you can actually come out from it and have a totally different life that you didn't expect, but that is a good one.
Speaking of younger generation, there's a young woman in the room, Lily Donahue. Will you stand up and give us a wave? Lily is in her mid-30s, and she's starting a really cool company called Prenup.
Oh, fantastic.
That's her prenup hat. The idea is essentially financial literacy for young women, and creating a way for young women to approach their own financial solvency, even while entering into a marriage, in an affordable way, because not everybody can afford the kinds of lawyers that some can afford. So yay, Lily, you go. Prenup.
Fantastic.
Okay, next question. Yes.
Hi.
First, I just want to thank you for opening the door for this conversation and so many conversations. I went through slightly different circumstances. I ended up leaving for similar reasons, and I have sons. They were 15 and 19 at the time. Mm-hmm. And so many psychologists said, it's such a fine line to walk, you don't want to badmouth the father. And when you're saying what happened, that can sound like bad-mouthing. Yes. And I know I don't want to give anything away. I know the situation was different for your son than your daughter's. Can you say more about if you were advised to handle anything differently for him? And I feel like having sons, it's all the more important that they know. And so how do you be true? When do you be true? How do you talk to sons?
It's like a tightrope walking this line. It really is so hard. And I have not always done it correctly. And I kind of learn from them I've learned they don't want me to ask them how their dinner went with their dad. They don't want to report. But I do think it's possible to say, this is what happened. Dad had an affair and he left, without saying, your dad is the worst. I think it's all about language, and it's all about what is truth and what is kind of building a case against someone so that they feel like they have to defend them, if that makes sense. I've really tried to treat all three kids the same, but my son, I'm very conscious of him, growing into a man who won't do this, who will, and it is in his DNA too, and it's his father's father left the family for a period of time too, so he has that legacy. I think he's built very differently. He's like a very emotionally connected kid, but I'm very conscious of it, and my hope is that by not covering it up, that it's less likely to happen. Thank you.
Hi. Just quick, I just wanted to ask you about a soft point in the end. After you were divorced, mm-hmm. you saw him on the street, and he was waving like a friend. Mm-hmm. I mean, that made me nuts.
Yeah.
And secondly, do you still see him around?
Well, we live only blocks away from each other, and it's crazy how few times I've seen him. I think it's only 3 or 4 times I've seen him. But yes, he was waving like we were long lost friends, and I think that's kind of how he views it. If he said it was fine enough times, it would be fine. This is fine, everything is fine. that it would all be all
abstraction.
right. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, the abstraction. And that moment, it was, and I hadn't finished the book yet when that happened, and I was like, wow, this is like, I'm looking at this person who I really don't know, and he's looking at me like he knows me, but he doesn't have a clue. He has no idea what my life is like now. I don't know what his life is like. But I think that cheerful, like everything is fine, is sort of how he is about it.
So have you gone back to the Vineyard since you've written the book, and have people treated you a bit differently than how they did when he left you and you were sort of in that period?
Well, I was back after Modern Love came out, but not the book. So I have written about the Vineyard, and people, the brain tends to stick on like the few negative stories rather than on, there was so much kindness and so much support. And I've heard from a lot of people have written me, and from that community have written me. Some men have said, you've given me a lot to think about. There are a couple people who I don't think other people know who they are, but they know who they are. Like they were there, and they said the things they said. And two of them have talked to me about it, difficult conversations. And one is pretending like it's just not her. She's just like, she's just going to go full force that it was not her. So I'm a little nervous about it. It's a private club. It's a lot that I actually wrote about it. But, I'm hoping, what's nice is I've actually met other people on the island now because of the book, and that my world will expand. But I'll let you know. How it goes.
We'll check back.
Okay, check back, yeah.
Yeah, we're over here.
Hi, Belle. Thanks,
Hi.
Deb, for having Belle. This is such a great night. I had a question about, so you mentioned a little bit 30 years ago you were dissuaded from writing by a male student.
Yes.
Now you've seen the success of the book, becoming a movie, meeting with Oprah, here at the Ocean House. Are you continuing to write? Is there another book in the works?
I started another book before this book came out. It's fiction. I have no desire to write another memoir. I feel like this is enough. And I find fiction a lot harder. This I had a roadmap because it all happened. Fiction I don't. When the book came out, it took off in a way I did not expect, and it's been very hard to switch between all these conversations and having this out in the world to writing the fiction. I'm hoping that I'll have time this summer to get back to it. But yes, if I can have a life as a writer going forward, I will be so grateful.
Can you give us any hints about what the fiction book is about?
I like to write about families and relationships, and I feel like very focused on college right now. I don't know if it's because, I don't know if you read Lily King's book, Heart the Lover. I love like that whole kind of feel.
Are you going to narrate your next book?
You mean on audio?
Yeah.
They usually do that with memoir. I don't know if they do. Do you narrate yours?
I do not, because everyone thinks my books are autobiographical. So
you say, you create some distance.
And I use many autobiographical details, but I write fiction.
It's fiction.
So
yes.
I need that distance.
Yes, that makes sense. No. Probably not. I did not want to do the audio for this, and thank you. Thank you.
We have time for a couple more.
Hi. I just want to say I lived the experience of your youngest daughter. This is my mom also. And I'm now 32 years old. My mom is getting married this weekend.
Oh, congratulations.
And I wanted you to talk a little bit more about other people's reactions, like in Martha's Vineyard and also in your New York community, because I think that was something that I really struggled with. And the person, I think it was your friend's husband, who was the first person who was like, this is not normal.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about that? And also, do you feel like you have a superpower now where you can be like, this is not normal? It's something that you don't really see until you really go through it.
So true, and I don't think I was a person who would have done that before this happened. I think I would have tried to respect someone's privacy. That's what I would have said, like, oh, I'm not going to intrude on their privacy. Meanwhile, you know that everyone's talking about it, right? You get into this, you go overnight from being something, you're a part of something, and then all of a sudden you're not a part of that thing. You're not invited to the same things. It's like you become this alien. But I had such good examples, and that man was one who I did not know well. But there was so much gossip and so many stories, and like, oh, she must have been like, they must have been really unhappy, and she must have been hard to live with, or whatever. And he just sat there and looked me in the eye and said, "This is not right," and that meant so much to me. Also, that man who crossed the street holding his bicycle, who said, "I'm so sorry this is happening to you." And it was such a simple thing to say, and it's been so instructive for me about how I want to move towards people when they're not just divorced, but going through anything. I think just saying that one line means so much to be seen and to be understood. But my daughters had a really tough time too. People would say really hurtful things that were, these are kids, so you can't really blame them, but they, crazy stories about what had happened, and they feel protective of me. It's really hard. It's harder at your age. I really get it. Yeah.
And I think
congratulations.
Yes,
I'm so happy for you.
I think when it's going on, even the people who aren't unkind or cruel, one can feel sort of like that cautionary tale, don't go near her, she's the hot mess. It might be catchy.
Yes, there's a fear.
Like, we like you, but...
of fear of contagion. I also just think we don't have the language around it. We have language around death. It's hard for people to know what to say, especially in our specific
I've thought a lot about that.
circumstances.
We have time for one more question, and then you can talk in the back.
Thank you so much to both of you. This has been phenomenal. My question, you had mentioned a couple times in the book about being Catholic, and I'm curious, when people encounter crises in life, that they either kind of make or break their religious journey. I'm curious how faith factored into your process.
It's an important question, and I would say it didn't come in the form of returning to church or going to Mass again. I still have like complicated feelings around that from my childhood, but I became much more spiritual, and I would, even though I didn't go into the church in Vineyard Haven, I stood outside it every day, and I pray, and I said the prayers from my childhood, the Our Father and Hail Mary, and I did this and that. And that was really important to me. I think that really was very grounding. And then I write about my deads, my people, and that sort of like spiritual connection was also really important to me. And it was so real to me. It's really, so yes, I still view myself as Catholic, but I'm not very good at going to Mass.
Thank you, Belle,
of course.
so much.
Thank you so
for
much,
coming
Deborah.
here. Thank you all.
Thank you for joining us for this special broadcast of the Ocean House Author Series with Deborah Goodrich Royce. Please tune in each month as we'll bring you a new Ocean House Author Series highlighting nationally best-selling and award-winning authors in a salon-style conversation. Hosted by Ocean House owner, actress, and best-selling author Deborah Goodrich Royce. WCRI is pleased to be partnering with the Ocean House to bring you this ongoing series highlighting the best and brightest of the literary world. Thank you once again for joining us. And in the words of Margaret Atwood, in the end, we all become stories.